Hello. I always struggle with the start of each of my voiceovers. I never know what to say first, so I'm just going to jump right into it. This painting is going to one of my patrons, and for that reason, it needed to be planned out a little bit more than my usual doodling sessions. And I'm working on regular cellulose watercolor paper, so this is Canson XL cold pressed. I've selected a few colors as well, and I'm going to use them in different values. So sometimes I'll add more water, sometimes the colors might be a little bit more pigmented. I wanted something soft, and I also wanted to mix all of these colors together. I don't know if you've noticed, but when I started the project, I already had quite a few colors that were mixed inside the palette. That's because I've been playing with these colors before. So I had a plan in mind. Basically, I wanted to create a forest of my usual, I call them lollipop trees, but they're slowly moving away from lollipops because none of the shapes are exactly circle shaped. But they're my own usual trees, misshapen leaves, full shapes with tiny trunks. And I also wanted to experiment with doodling around the shapes and also kind of like keep the shapes very clean. I've also experimented with adding a lot more water, meaning that instead of creating beautiful washes of colors inside the shapes, I intentionally left a lot of water on my brush, and that kind of like created a bubble of water in which the paint is kind of encapsulated. And what that does, you can see here, I just flicked a little bit of those drops, and this is the excess water that I have on my brush. What that does is that it creates this beautiful kind of like an outline around the shape, and it almost looks like a balloon because the rim of the shape has a strong outline, which is exactly what I was going for. So this, I mean, although it was a planned out piece, there's still room for experimentation. And plus, true to my nature, I've made a few mistakes along the way, and I'm going to show you how I fixed them as well. Sometimes I need my phone to check the composition of my work because that gives me a proper aerial view as opposed to craning my neck to look at my camera viewfinder. And that also tells me where I need to add stuff or what my next step should be. And that is why I added this cluster of dots on the bottom there to get my sort of visual triangle. Then came to doodling, and while I was doodling, my hand dragged onto the wet dots that I had just painted. I completely forgot about them, and that created that ugly streak that I have on the right hand side. Normally I would leave it, but it did not fit the mood of this painting. So I'm using this shader brush, which has very short bristles and they're very dense, and I'm essentially scraping at the paper very delicately, and that lifts the color. And I've actually dedicated an entire class to this technique. It's called watercolor carving. I will put the link in an iCard in case you want to check that out. But here is the brush, very essential in my opinion to lift colors and repair mistakes. At first, I started doodling with the marker directly, and then it dawned on me that I could be a little bit more free if I were to draw the shapes, because what I wanted to do was to place the doodled trees behind the shapes that I had painted. And that was kind of a little bit problematic because some of these doodling involved lines going across and behind those shapes. Had I gone directly with the marker, I would have had to take great care when I needed to break the line. And so using the pencil, I was able to just draw everything in its entirety, even the spaces where the doodling was going behind the trees. And then I went in with the marker, making sure that I did not add any marker over the painted bits. And then I just erased the line. So that was an extra step in a way, but it saved me a lot of headaches.
Oh baby, I love your madness. It's so incredibly beautiful. Oh, you shine like gold, so selfless to all, and wild like an animal. Some would say I'm insane in the right in a way, but I just love to play in your fun and your games. Always hungry for more, that's just how I was born. Take me somewhere I don't know, and give me your freedom. Whoa, you love me to pieces, yeah, I need it. Once you're pandemonium, life is so easy. Whoa.
Here's another mistake that I'm going to have to fix. I thought at the time that it would be a good idea to shade in between the circles in that tree. And then I realized that it wouldn't have been consistent with the other doodle trees. None of them have fillers. They're basically just lines except for the little polka dot tree at the bottom, but it's still very delicate. Had I filled in all the spaces with the shading, it would have looked different, and I didn't want that. So of course I couldn't do anything about the markers that I had laid down. It's permanent. So what I did instead is I filled in that space with a dot of Payne's gray paint, and I added 4 more so that I would have my odd number and not just one black spot. And of course that piece was screaming gold at me. But it just that was a game changer for me, because although I like the piece that way, I think the gold dots add that contrast. Not that there are no contrasts, because it's black against muted tones, but that gold was just the last element that I needed. And that's basically it. The whole painting is finished, and I absolutely love it. I have enjoyed the process. Lately I've been doing a lot more detailed work, and I'm not sure that I talked about this here before. I know I have come out so to speak to my patrons, but here on YouTube you will find every possible style that you can find, because I hover between some of them. I have my favorites, but I'm very cyclical, if I can explain it that way. I like all types of styles, so it's kind of like my multi-style style. I wasn't sure if I'd mentioned it or not. Maybe I have. I don't know. Bad memory. Sorry. But anyways, I really enjoyed this piece, and I hope that you have enjoyed it too. It's a fun process. Doodling around shapes is something that requires a little bit more thought, but sometimes you just need to push your boundaries. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to my awesome patrons over at Patreon who are helping support this channel. Thank you very much, guys, and thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.